partnering up with respect to Viet Nam in the conflict resolution side, but also building a platform for all these new hoteliers here in Vietnam. Because when you drive around Da Nang, you see new hotels going up everywhere. And a lot of these hotel owners are owners coming from Hanoi, and they see how lucrative it's going to be to build a hotel. So they build a hotel, but they have nobody to operate. So it's going to be an interesting road coming. So we're breaking it down to a fairly simple model where we look at our customers and our employees. So coming from this side, we have our partnerships, we have our employees, and we have our process. Then we're creating the value for our customer, which is going to be loyal, and our distribution channel. It's a very simple model, but we're going to experience conflicts on both sides on a daily basis. And of course, cost efficiency and revenue growth is what drives our industry today. To the point where we're forgetting the value of the people. And when we talk about the people, we talk not just about the customer, but also our employees. So, looking at this from the employee side and from the customer side, we have many different channels today where conflict is broadcast. From the employee side and from the customer side. So from the customer side, of course, the conflict will most likely be on TripAdvisor or any type of social media. But also contributions. So when we see these conflicts arise on TripAdvisor, some people are actually very detailed and very accommodating. They're giving us the conflict, but they're also giving us solutions. Those are the ones that we really grab onto and use to try to educate and change the behaviors that we have and also engage in training. So then, looking at the TripAdvisor comments, there's also TripAdvisor as a tool. They're already giving us a lot of detailed information, looking at value, the value proposition. Location might not be so important, but in some districts it's very important. Sleep quality, the rooms, the cleanliness, and service. And if you look at this, value, people. Sleep quality, people. The room product, people. Cleanliness, people. Service, people. So we get a lot of details out of TripAdvisor. However, as we talked about in some other presentations here, our corporations and our bosses, they think of numbers. So we are creating a model that's called 360 Moon. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So on the employee side, likewise, they have TripAdvisor, or they have Facebook, they have Zalo, they have all these communication tools where if something goes wrong at work, all the employees will know it before the managers know. It goes very quick today. If there's anybody leaving or got fired, most likely the whole team will know before the upper management knows, which creates conflict and creates separation anxiety from both sides. So then looking at the tool that we have come up with, when you look at the customer and the employee journey, they actually follow each other. However, there's a big gap, and that's where the conflict arises. And as the conflict arises, the customer is not happy, but neither is the team member, which creates a lot of turnover within the organization. And what I've experienced so far here in Vietnam, the labor market for hospitality industry is very, very competitive. I just helped open Coco Bay. 2 months after we hired and trained our people, the new Sheraton opened, which is literally a mile away. So we lost 250 employees in 1 day because they offer 50 cents more an hour. So why is that? We didn't have a value for the team member. So this is really what inspired me to start looking at the gap between the employee journey and the customer journey. So going into a little more detail on that, so we're creating the 360 Moon, which really going to measure customer experience and employee engagement to try to get these two journeys to come and flow together. And the only way to do that, to convince the owners and the corporations, is really breaking it down to cost and efficiency. Because once you can quantify a number, then they can understand that it's worth spending money to fix it. So that's where my quality background comes in, and hence I talk so much about TripAdvisor, but you need the data in order to facilitate the change. So just when we talk about a customer journey, it doesn't start when they actually come to the hotel. It starts way before. And it goes on way past they've been at the hotel. Similarly to the employee journey. The employee journey starts when we start going to college, start going to university. That's really where it starts. And how do we shape that? Because also another aspect that we are up against in the service industry is a lot of parents don't want their kids servicing other people. Because it's a service, it's not a true job. It's not a career. You can do it while you go to college, but please, it's not a career. So looking at these two journeys and how they go together, just looking at one customer employee gap analysis on TripAdvisor, you can see that the problem is broken down exactly with problem, people, process, and purpose, where we can get a lot of details from the employee side and also the customer side. So, having said that, when I was working at Hilton, New York, I came up with the quality failure index. So, most people would say that if I scored a 95% successful rating, say that my customer service sits at 95%. Would you guys say it's good? 95% of my customers are happy.
Great.
It's great, right? However, we had 2,545 rooms in the hotel. The number of possible nights is 365, and we had an average occupancy of 82%. So total occupied rooms per year is 766,000. The average length of stay is almost 4 days. Then you break that down with check-ins per year, 196,000. And the 5% dissatisfied guests. Those 5% dissatisfied guests is 9,800 guests, who then will talk to 10 times that. So average daily rate was $220. So the total opportunity cost for 1 day is $2,105. Yeah? Then you take that times the 3.9 days. Now you're looking at $8,466 opportunity cost for 5% dissatisfied customers. And let me tell you, when I showed this to my board, their eyes popped out because they thought 95% is great, right? But then we dug even further and we started talking about how many employees left last year. So it was 13.4%. We came up to, in New York City, the average for a line level employee cost to replace is $3,000. Yeah? So now, you add that to the 230 employees that left, that's another 690,000. So the total opportunity cost is really $9 million for 1 year. So now in the 360 Moon model that we're creating, we're taking the conflict management and pairing it up with quantifiable data so that we can show the hotel owners how much this will cost you if we don't address the root cause. And most of the time, the root cause, when you start breaking it down with the 5 whys and all the other techniques, it comes back to people and process, and where the conflict or the process breaks down. So then, through Respect Vietnam, we have our model where we go back to the traditional plan, do, check, act, but really focusing in on the 4 Ps. The problem, the people, the process, and the policy. But we're actually pairing that up with quantifiable data so that the decision makers in the organization can actually make the right decision instead of just making a decision based on the gut feeling, which has been the trend in the hospitality industry for the last 25 years. Any questions? Yeah.
Is that transferable to can you build a model?
Can you talk to the mic? Can you give him the mic? The microphone?
Can you use a sort of model for that for any employment situation? Because one of the things about employment mediation is to persuade the employers what it costs in terms of absenteeism, loss of morale, loss of energy, number of people that they're paying to stay at home. It will be wonderful to be able to have something to present to employers. This is why you need to improve your management, conflict management systems.
Right, and I think the QFI index that I have created for the hotel, I think you can alter that model as long as you have the key performance indicators that employer is really concerned about, and then drive it home. Because I think with any employer, and I know, having being a GM, I sit and look at what's going to make financial sense on a daily basis. So once you get something in your face that really shows you what the cost of this conflict is, you want to fix it. So I'd be happy to share the spreadsheet and the models with you, and that way you can alter it to work for you.
That would be great, because I think a lot of us who do deal with workplace employment situations, it's persuading the employers that it's cost effective to get some mediation process in online.
And you know, I haven't been in this industry now for almost 30 years. On a daily basis, we have conflict management because it happens with the guest and it happens with the employee every day.
Could you address the impact of customer acquisition and the fallout of the 5% and how that would impact, in a cascade effect, much more exponentially how much more money you would lose.
Right, so the 5%, the key here is that in our industry, most hotel companies look at 80% and above, they're very satisfied. So it's very hard to drive the management to invest more training, invest more in the people, because they're saying we're already excellent. So by using my model and really showing them that, yes, we're excellent, but this is your cost. So if you want to invest another 20, 30,000 in training, now we start talking about our gap to perfection. So the gap to perfection, the way we used it is that you take a 10% gap to perfection to slowly decrease it, because you can't go from 80% to 100% in 1 year. It's impossible. So we introduced the 10% gap to perfection, so we grew every year. And in that gap to perfection action plan, of course, there's cost associated, but then I have the 10 or 9 million to offset. It's a sales tool, really.
Exactly.
I'm curious, when you were saying that when you were helping the Coco restaurant, open their restaurant, and the 50 cents differences make the employees went away. Yeah, because of the
And please, it's not unique to Coco Bay.
Yes.
I also was at Viet Pearl, and when the new hotels open up around, same thing happens.
Right. My point is, when you said they went away because of the values, could you help elaborate more as to how do you solve that? Because I think the values and the loyalty of the employees are not only unique to hospitality.
No, it's
Yes.
not. And again, utilizing my model to gain support from the organization to actually invest in the team member more, not only about pay, right? Because when you look at the employees' top 5, pay is not the highest one. So it's about creating a value proposition for the team member to really stay, even if they get 50 cents going next door. So what is that value proposition, right? So depending on what market you're in, like for example in Phuket, when I was at Vingroup, we put a lot of effort in the employee housing, the employee cafe, the employee shop, because it's almost like a cruise ship. You have to fly employees in, they stay there, they work, but what's the social environment? So there's many different ways to look at these values, but the only way you find that is by engaging the employee. Without engaging the employee, you will never find out what that value proposition is. And what I've experienced here in Vietnam, we're not good at that here. We're not good at really finding out exactly what the team member values. We think they value this, so we do X. But then a new hotel opens, and still 50, 60 people left. What are we doing wrong?
Any more questions?
How's Coco Bay listed on TripAdvisor so we can make sure we give you guys a good rating?
Yeah, I think they will be listed next year. I have a feeling.
Okay, cool.
They're not on TripAdvisor lately, so you cannot log in.
And understandably why. I mean, when you are an organization that is opening up, I mean, once Coco Bay is finished in 2020, it's 14,000 hotel rooms. Yeah? So when you open your first 1,500, naturally there's a lot of construction going on still. So by putting yourself on TripAdvisor, it's like committing suicide.
Okay.
I heard about all the conflict or turnover, also some termination, even wrongful, and then in the hotel industry. So what, when you're really there, is there any mechanism in some way that you're working on it to make sure that both side, employee and their bosses, happy, or you have to use mediation to some extent?
Well, currently here in Vietnam, there's not a lot of systems in place to assist in wrongful termination or in conflict between an employee and the manager or manager and the company. So you're forced to use mediation, and especially from an expat standpoint, because we don't know the true meaning of the law, for example. So when something happens that's wrongful, we might not even know. And I've seen companies here where you have CEOs from a foreign nationality completely go against the local laws and regulations, not knowing it, and then costing the company a lot of money. So definitely there's, especially in the hospitality industry here, there's definitely need for education for the companies, but also for the team members as well. But again, a lot of that would disappear if we actually engaged the employee and actually found out and closed the gap between these two journeys.
Any other questions? Thank you, Johan. for
Not a
your- Okay, so we break for an hour, and we're back here at 2 p.m.